Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm John Foster, the president of the Hilton Pharma Historical Society, and this is a joint presentation tonight with the Hilton Alumni Association. Before we begin, let's do as we traditionally do and have a pledge to the flag. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have a seat. We're delighted to have you here for the kickoff of this season's local history presentations. But before I start that, we have one sort of personal matter to take care of, and that is that tonight happens to be the wedding anniversary of our dear friends Dave and Cheryl Allmeter. How many years is it, Dave? Cheryl? I'm not sure how many years it is, but it's probably at least
57 years.
57. Okay, I just want to alert you to a few upcoming local history events that we'll be having here in the next couple of months. We have this speaker presentation on the second Monday of every month, usually at 7 o'clock. Tonight, we're in a different venue here at the Quest School. Typically, we're at the Community Center at 7 o'clock. So if you get our newsletter or you check on Facebook, you'll see the presentations listed there. Next month, we're going to have one by, I've forgotten the fellow's name, but on the 1919 pandemic. So we'll hear some history on that. And then in November will be the beginning of the story of a phenomenal Hilton woman named Ruth Williams Rickey, who grew up here and went on to a life that involved high society in New York as the wife of an obstetrician, and then a life with Mussolini's government in Italy before the war, and then back here to Hilton and off to California to marry a congressman. So we won't get all that next month in November, but a lot. One more thing. We have a cemetery tour Amanda Dudley has organized for us at the Hoosick Cemetery. That's going to be on the 12th. Thank you.
October.
Columbus Day, I guess, of October. Hoosick Cemetery is on the corner of Manitou Road and Ridge Road on the southwest corner. Anyway, there's parking just beyond it on Manitou. Okay, I'll say no more at this point. I'm going to turn it over to Nan Laporte, the president of the Alumni Association.
Thank you, John. This is the second joint co-sponsored speaker event that we've done together. We hope to do more in the future. And one of the reasons the Alumni Association is involved in this is that Bill, our speaker for the evening, is a Hilton alum. And so it's great to be able to combine the two. It's a historical event with one of our alumni. The Alumni Association basically exists to connect the community, educators, and I've just lost my train of thought. Students, students. We connect them in order to benefit the students at the school. And we do that through giving classroom grants as well as senior scholarships. And in the 2.5 years we've been in business, quote unquote, we have given close to $20,000 to the school in grants, to classroom grants, and we've given about $5,000 in scholarships. We do it, and we do it through fundraising, as you can well imagine. And because this is our kickoff, I'll just get a plug in here, that we have raffle tickets available for the Bills Patriots game on December 22nd at Orchard Park. You can get one for $5 or 5 for $20. So if you want to see me or this gentleman, Rick, over here, just a little plug, because this is how we're able to fund all that granting and scholarships. So we're excited to be co-sponsoring. We're really excited to hear Bill, and I'm going to be quiet so you can do that.
Good evening. So, if you were fortunate enough last year to participate in our session with Dan Vitt, Dan did the Miracle on the Hudson, and it was very well received. And at a follow-up board meeting, we actually talked about how there was also a previous Hilton citizen named May Howard, who was a survivor of the Titanic. So we sort of joked around about how we got the Hilton Survivor series going, and we should get more of those stories going. And at that moment, it sort of dawned on me, I know somebody else that survived a pretty significant tragedy. So I reached out to Bill. I was a little hesitant. I've known Bill for 45 years plus. And this story, unlike Dan's was a very happy story. Everybody lived. And this one, not so much. And so it was, I was a little hesitant, but I talked to Bill, and Bill wasn't originally just jumping out either, because it's emotional for him as well, as you can imagine. You know, the important thing here is that Bill thought he needed to memorialize this for his family. They knew the story, but they didn't know all the other things. And the one thing that Dan taught us last year about his story with the Miracle on the Hudson was he was one of 155 people. He had one of 155 different stories. In this particular instance, Bill is just one of millions of stories, because every one of us lived that day. Most of us lived that day not there, but we lived that day. We all know where we were, who we were with, what we were doing, what we were watching, seeing. I was in the break room at the paper mill at Kodak Park. I went in to get some M&Ms, and what the hell, there's a hole in the building. And being an engineer, all I could think of was, how are they going to patch that hole? And then shortly thereafter, there was a second plane, and we knew what the attack was underway. But then I drifted into this, oh my God, my friend Bill is there. What's going on with him? And then the building falls, the buildings fall. And it was very emotional, because I thought I just potentially saw my friend die. And so the rest of the day, of course, went on, and thank God Bill did survive. And now he's here able to tell us his story in person. So please give Bill Golan a warm welcome. Also, please turn your phones off. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jerry? Microphone, move closer. That work? We couldn't really hear you.
Oh, you could?
Hear you, Jerry? Yeah. No, just, yeah, well, you got a loud voice so we can hear you, but, yeah, there you go. Much better.
How's that?
Yep,
Does that work?
yep.
Just get closer to it.
Yeah, you may have to
There
hold
we
it.
go.
Check, check, check.
There you go.
All right, well, thank you, Jerry. That is the most recent introduction I've had. Now, I do appreciate it, and it's funny when he said survivor. I don't feel like a survivor. There was so much tragedy, and we'll talk about different stories and such, but I think, as Jerry said, I suspect there's people here who know people who were down there, or have friends and other stories. So, you know, folks want to share a little something later, that would be great. But I appreciate the Historical Society and the Alumni Association, and hook me in for $20 on the raffle tickets. But then I don't have to sit with Jerry and Todd, right? Is that part of the deal? But it's great to be back in Hilton. I probably come back once a year, maybe it's every other year. probably getting every year lately. Bills are better, so more excuse to come back. But being back with family and old friends, emphasis friends, the old part, has been just great. We caught the game yesterday, so it's been a really special few days. And to Jerry's point, I tell this story. I said yes because I think it's important to remember. And so it would be easy for me to have not have thought about this, not prepared, not come up from Westchester County to do this, but if I can help keep people aware, and maybe somebody checks out one of the documentary where the truly his heroic people did things, carrying people down 80 flights, or fire, like there's so many unbelievable stories that I think the more we pay attention, the more we keep it alive and we can remember. So I think that Jerry, I'm glad Jerry said that about it's not a happy ending because there's no, unfortunately, and I'm going to end probably with a somber note, but that's the day, right? So, and if I get choked up, it's okay. I didn't, it does happen. I was at the hotel and I'm like, oh, I kind of hear my comments, and I'm getting freaking choked up. And I'm thinking, for what? I'm in the hotel room by myself. This is 20 years ago. But it was, it's still fairly raw. So, so I appreciate everybody being here and expressing their interest in remembering. So before I want to talk a little bit about my journey. And so, I mean, half this room is probably family at this point, but so you probably know. But for the others, I want to do my journey, how I got into Seven World Trade. What the heck was I doing down there? And then I want to do a lay of the land of Seven World Trade, or the World Trade Center complex, right? So before we called it Ground Zero, it was the World Trade Center complex. So I want to spend a few minutes on that. It's it was an amazing place. And then I'll kind of walk through my day and a little bit of the aftermath, and I'll try to stop in each third there and ask questions. But if somebody wants to raise your hand, that's fine. But I will try to remember to stop. Before I kind of get into the three parts that I want to cover, there's two things that are seared in my memory that. One very personal and one very kind of everybody's seen it and not, but it's just the dichotomy of my morning was, as pronounced as it could be. So Jerry, want to hit the first slide? So that is not my Northwood Elementary construction paper coloring project. That is the color of the sky on September 11th. And you hear lots of people talk about it. And they should. But I have to say, in New York, in September, you get some skies like that. It happens. It's really nice, and I really appreciate it. Especially coming here, we have some of those white puffy things in the sky. Yes. So, but I remember I was coming up through 5 World Trade Center. I take the New Jersey Transit in, basically a subway, overground, under the river, into the World Trade Center. And as I'm coming up the escalator, I saw the sky when I went outside, and I literally stopped. And you don't stop on your commute. You are always trying to make a faster and faster commute. So I stopped, and I appreciated it, and it was just so beautiful. And so through that appreciation, I think there was a kind of a broader thing, right? Like, I really liked working downtown. I really liked working downtown. And life was good, job was going good, I had a wife and 2 kids at home. So I think it was kind of a life is good moment. And that was probably about 8 o'clock in the morning on September 11th. So Jerry, you want to hit the other one? So this is 8:46. And that is right before impact of the first plane. And what you can't see, and what was hard for me when I saw this video the first time, was, my building is right behind that one. So I will show you in a better picture. But I wasn't in the World Trade Center, 1 or 2, but I was across the street, so, and I was there. So I went from, you know, kind of a life is good appreciation moment to a really bad day, really, really fast. So, let me talk a little bit about, Jerry, you want to hit the first slide there? Yeah. So, folks that don't know me, I grew up here. Where is it? Up here, Braddock's Bay area. That's actually where my house used to be. It's kind of weird that it's gone, but it's on that corner of Sand Creek there. But it was up by Braddock's Bay, so lots of boating, and I really enjoyed it. And went to Hilton schools the whole time. Want to hit the next slide, Jerry? When at Hilton, I probably did one thing. If I had to say, if we were to pick something we did, we played basketball. We were very one-dimensional. It was, it probably wasn't the right decision to be so focused. But I can tell you that half of those guys on that team, I text with regularly. And I think a third of them, I have 5 unread texts on my phone right now from. So we really, it's been really special how close we've stayed together. But we spent a lot of time, you see at Henry Street up there, we spent a lot of time at Henry Street fighting, arguing, and not getting much better at basketball. So, next you got it. So after high school, class of '85, I went to a morning college in Syracuse and had a great time. I know that Mike Gibbs looked up to me so much he went there, and Jay Heiss's little brother looked up to me and went there, so I was a trailblazer for the little brothers. They didn't want to follow their older brother. So Lemoyne was great. I got an accounting degree, it was fine. I met my future wife, and I had a great time. What I didn't have was a job prospect. I didn't have a plan. I had a resume. But I really hadn't done anything else. And having kids who just got through college, if they did what I did, there would have been hell to pay. So literally, just a quick story. So the decision, you can imagine how much thought I put into what am I going to do after graduation? Where am I going to work? Where am I going to look for a job? And so, you know me, there's lots of, I got the pluses and minuses. In this instance, we've got the car loaded, college, and we've been kicking the can down the road, continuing to find reasons to go out. And we're going to a baseball tournament in Connecticut, and cars loaded with my friends and our bags. And my friend's brother who's driving said, "What are you going to do? Where are you going to work? What's your career?" And I said, "I don't really know." And he said, "Get your resume, and I'll get you a job in New York in 2 weeks." And I thought, and my other roommate was going to live with him. He's like, "You can live with me, and I'll get you a job." And I thought, that's the first job prospect I had. And the other prospect was going home and being, in the house, worried about my parents checking on my job search every day, which I was not interested in, with all due respect. Is my mom here yet? But it's just, it was a pressure. I knew I was unprepared, and it was a pressure I didn't want. And somebody gave me the answer, and I took it. So literally, I go back in, get my suit and resume, and I go back, get in the car. It was a month, not 2 weeks, but I ended up getting a job there. And you can see, this is my office here, this building here. This is at the north end of Columbus Circle. So, and that's obviously Central Park. And so that's like 59th Street on the west side. And I'm still the kid from Hilton who barely got a degree here. Well, Jerry, let's edit that out of the video, but I barely got the degree. But I just felt like they put me in the 41st floor, and I was doing corporate accounting, so it was boring, but it was so exciting. You know, I'm looking over the Meadowlands, lunch in Central Park. Did not expect this. So, that's how I got to the city. Living in the city, I worked in the city until about 92 when I moved into the city. And before then I was like, I think there was one day I was literally homeless. But I had 5, 6 apartments between 2 weeks and 6 months. Sometimes it was a couch, sometimes a bed, sometimes the floor, but I never complained because it was so much fun for a 20-something. So fast forward to 1994, and in 94, I got a job at Solomon Brothers. I moved to Battery Park City, which I will show you on the map in a minute, and I got married. So any significance to the year and those things? Anyone?
94?
Oh, that's
Yes.
the first bombing.
No one?
Crime Control Act, that's not it.
No, Sherry?
Yeah.
No, actually the first bombing was 1993. Very good. No, it's my 30-year wedding anniversary. That's good. I like all the groaning. Actually I thought that somebody in my family would say, oh, it's your 30-year anniversary. And I was going to say, it is? Really? But no, that's all covered. So, and for folks that don't know Solomon Brothers, anyone know Solomon Brothers, the firm? Heard of it?
Heard of it, yeah.
A few, right? I mean, this was one of the classic, stereotypical Wall Street firms in the 80s. I started in 94. By the time I started, they'd already gotten in so much trouble with the regulators for bogus trading that some guy named Warren Buffett gave us $700 million so we didn't go bankrupt. And I didn't know who he was, but I had to do these reports that go to Warren. And he didn't come to my desk and say, hey, Bill, do you have my numbers? But I was the grunt who did the spreadsheet that found its way to Omaha. So, but Solomon was, as much as I'm doing corporate accounting, it's not exciting, but the industry was super exciting. And so I just kept learning in grad school and all those things, just to maximize what I was getting out of it. There's a book, anybody know Michael Lewis? Big Short, Blindside, Moneyball, lots of great books. His first book was Liar's Poker, and Liar's Poker was about his time working at Solomon Brothers. And it's all the things you would imagine, like, Old Boys Network on steroids. So that wasn't exactly the environment I got into, but there was remnants. So now that's 94. So now I live in Battery Park City, as I said. My first son is born, and we realized that he might be afraid of grass. We had an incident in the park when he crawled over, touched grass, and recoiled. And I said, I'm from Hilton. My son will not be afraid of grass. So we had to move to the suburbs, and our friends suggested this place called New Jersey, which just was, I didn't think they were serious. In all the respect to New Jersey, it took us a while to come to grips with it was the right answer because the commute into the World Trade Center was so direct and so much easier. So we end up in Jersey, very happy. Great town, commute was decent for the New York area, and had my second son was born, and so my son Alex, who on 9/11 was a year and a half, and his older brother Billy was 4 years old on 9/11, and so we were settled in Jersey. I had 14-year-old daughter today, and I mention that not because it's relevant to the story, but if I go home and she finds out that I didn't bring her up, I'm in big trouble, and I want to have to answer that. So I mentioned my daughter Kayla, officially mark the record. And the only claim to fame I probably have, and it's not much of a claim for sure, is as does my wife, we have 3 kids born in 3 states in 3 decades.
Oh, wow.
So, I don't know, anyone else have that? No? Okay. Anyways, so working at Solomon, I worked there. We actually got acquired by Citigroup, but I was in 7 World Trade up until 9/11, living in Jersey. All was well. So let me just stop. Any kind of questions on my great planning for my career and how I ended up where I did? Just dumb luck. Yes?
You didn't say which basketball player you were in the picture.
I didn't?
I didn't see it.
You mean I don't look exactly alike? Oh my goodness.
All right.
So I'm the guy trying to make his biceps look not skinny, right here. Still skinny. Can't see it.
What number? Give us a number.
24. I'm the top right.
All right.
Yeah. There's Todd. There's Jerry.
Okay.
Who else? Who? Who? Gibbs is here, definitely trying to puff out his biceps. Yes, that was me. All right. So let's talk about the World Trade Center complex pre-Ground Zero. So I'm sure folks know where Manhattan is, but you can see that relative to Manhattan, all the World Trade Center complex is very low. It's it's very south. It's not the bottom. There's actually neighborhoods down here, and parks and such, but it's pretty much as low as you can get in Manhattan. Jerry, you want to hit the? Can you all see when I use the pointer? Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
It's like a split decision. How is that possible? Okay. Okay. Good suggestion. All right. So as you can see here in blue, you've got the 7 buildings, right, that make up the complex. And if you look up top to 7 World Trade, as I said before, this is 1 World Trade is where the plane hit, right in here. And it basically had to fly over top of 7 to get there. So I had just finished sending an email to somebody that I'd been hanging over my head when that plane came over. And I'll talk more about it, but I think this is the best. It was actually frightening for me when I saw, like a few days later, that it really actually did go right over top. You can see to the left, you see WFC1, FC2, those are the World Financial Center. Those are newer buildings. Down here on the lower left, this is Battery Park City, where I mentioned I lived here on Albany Street. So I would commute from here to there, up in 7 World Trade. It doesn't get any better than that. And my wife worked over here on the right, you see 1 Liberty Plaza? So that was her commute. And the interesting might not be the right word, but 1 Liberty Plaza was where my wife worked. It was also where I proposed to her, and it was the board on 9/11 through for a week or 2. So it's I don't even know what they've done with it at this point, but it would take a lot of damage. So they were just using the lower level stores as a morgue. And then the other thing I want to point out, if you go back to 7 World Trade and you look at the Verizon building, there's an alleyway here. And it's not really a road, it was closed off. But this is where I was standing when the second plane hit, so we can talk more about that. And the other thing I want to point out on 7 World Trade, it's kind of faint, but there's a rectangle here. That's how you got in and out of the building. This bigger square was the smoking lounge, for lack of a better word. And so what happened was all of the, Jerry, you want to next? All of the entryways, most of the entryway to 7 World Trade was at the plaza level. So you see in the middle, you can see the towers, and then there's this ball in the middle here, which we'll have a closer up. But that was out my view. It was a very central part of the area, and quite historic, and it actually survived the collapse. I was going to point out one other thing. Oh, so you could see. Let's go to the next slide, Jared. Yeah. So this is my building. I would have been sitting, if you can see, it's a 47-story building, which I went to the top. I'm sure it was 43, but okay. Wikipedia says 47. I was on 38, and I was kind of in the middle, so I was sitting here on that day. Down here, you can see that smoking lounge I talked to you about, and that alleyway over here, the bottom left. And just want to point out that from this edge to around that corner is about 15 feet. Because that's how far I had to run the first time. First time somebody said run, that's what I did. I ran around that corner, and I'll explain it in a minute. So anyway, that's the building, and it's probably about half the size of the tower. So, Jerry, you want to go to the next one? So we're very fortunate to have had a tour guide who actually visited me in 1996 and took video and could actually access it and digitize it. So, where's Marlene? Oh, I see you hiding in the back. So there's Marlene and Jerry, there's myself and my wife in the top right picture. That's a picture next to us on the left. That's back to the sphere. That's Trade Tower 1 on the right and 2 on the left. In the middle is a hotel. And what we're doing there, and it doesn't show up too well, because it's an old picture, I guess, is you can see the World Trade Center towers behind us. So we're kind of standing up in front of the hotel. So Jerry brought his camera. This used to be about 20 minutes long, but I insisted he cut it down.
Was that the Marriott Financial?
Say it again?
Was that the Marriott Financial?
Yes, I think
They call it
so.
something else now.
Yes.
Downtown or...
Yes, there's multiple Marriott. I think there's a Marriott Financial now down further. But what you can see here, look at the view. It's unbelievable. And these guys were walking towards the edge, and everybody who was up there started screaming. What are they doing? It looked like they were jumping. And so we had a brief panic attack as they were kind of stepping down, and everyone was okay. But it is a spectacular place to visit. I know my mom and I visited, and even in the video, I stay way back from the edge, and my wife and Marlene are up looking over. I just didn't want any of that. So, but it's spectacular. We had my son's, his baptism, we had his party, Windows on the World, and when I think about the World Trade Center, I think about the people who worked up there on the building, the people that worked in the restaurant, just so many people. A lot of talk about the firefighters, as it should be, but there were just so many other regular people there every day, including that day. Okay, I don't want people to get seasick watching your video. So it kind of laid out what the area looks like, the building looks like, where I sat, proximity to how things came together. I think as somebody mentioned, there's the bombing in 1993, which actually my wife was there at One Liberty Plaza, and she felt her desk jump. Her desk left the floor. So she seems to be in the middle of a lot of this stuff. The Atlanta Olympic bombing, we were there like a few days before this. I'm not sure what's going on. She's not the best, most lucky person, I think. But anyways, any questions on World Trade Center area? Sure.
That first plane that flew over, you were in the building at the time, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
And no aircraft were allowed to fly over there. Did you hear that plane go over?
I heard that plane go over for an instant, and I'll give very detailed description how they went. Yeah.
Were there communication towers or anything on top of Building 7 that might have interfered with the flight of the plane?
No, it was so much. So the plane hit the World Trade Center around the 90th floor, and our building's 45, 47 stories, so it wasn't anything in the way. Anyone visit New York City?
Yeah.
All right, keep your hand up. Keep your hand up if you actually visited the World Trade Center. Oh, got it. Okay. And was that all? And leave your hand up if it was pre 9/11.
It was pre-9.
Okay, so you guys know. Okay, good. You guys could have stopped me. A lot of people have been down there, but it was a very dynamic, energetic place, and yeah, tough. Okay, so let's talk about September 11th, the day. This is just a slide you can see on the right, the first plane going in. This is a little more emphasis of how it went over 7 World Trade. But again, my day starts, I have to get in early because I've got this email hanging over my head. I must get it out. Procrastination was too much. So I'm in at 8 o'clock, I finish it up, send it out, and as soon as I hit send, it is a crack boom like thunder times 10. And so I'm at my desk, again, my back is to the window, right? So you remember that was the south side facing the World Trade Center. And so when it hit, I was like this. The concussion went through me. I mean, scared the hell out of me. But it actually physically moved me forward. And it's really funny what the brain does and how it works. Because before I turned around, I had it solved. I knew what it was. It was a storm, came in off the ocean. Sometimes that happens, I'm telling myself. And it just came in fast, and it's thunder, the most incredible thunder. I turned around, still blue sky. I looked out over the plaza where that sphere was I mentioned. That was my line of sight. And I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a Cessna crash somewhere. So I'm looking down, and I can see in the river, if I put my head to the window, nothing in the river, nothing in the plaza. I go back to look at the river, and all of a sudden, debris starts falling down from above. And that's when the expletives started to fly. Because I looked up, and I saw a hole. Now, again, my brain said, oh, there's a hole. and stuff's coming out, smoke, debris. And I said, oh, well, generator blew up. Something like, I figured something blew up inside out. And my brother would make fun of me, saying, generators don't blow up like that, dummy. But I'm not mechanical, so that's what I thought for the next 45 minutes. So I was like, holy cow, and it just looked like a hole. To your point about trying to fix it, it did not look massive up against the massive building. So I go out of my office, and I go to make a left to go talk to my buddies, and I see a guy who's probably my age now then, the elder statesman of our group, who probably hasn't done a lot of running in the recent past, and he is sprinting down the hallway to get out of the building. And he has a look in his eyes of fear that I was like, oh, yeah. Instead of going and looking and making, cracks about it, maybe we should get the hell out of here. And then my buddy who I was going to talk to, he's flying down the hallway. And so we all just kind of moved to the elevator bank. And so, elevator bank, you come out, you can go to the north side, or you go right through the doors to the south side, where we were. We get in the middle, and we're standing there for about 10 seconds, and there's probably about 12 of my coworkers around, and I said, should we take the stairs? And if you tell me something enough, I'll be programmed like a robot. Like, that's what they said, take the stairs. The building wasn't damaged. Nothing was wrong with the building, and yet I parroted, take the stairs, which is probably a safety bet. But at the time, we're saving a lot of energy to take the elevator. So we go through the other doors, and I got all my buddies around me, and the other side of the floor was filling up a stairway over here on, to our left. Few people going to the right, both perfectly good stairways. I said, I'm going to go right, less people. Some of my friends will follow me. I go right, door closes behind me, I'm alone. I couldn't believe it. So now I'm going down, and people from above, however many, 7 floors above us or so, were already in the elevators, or in the stairwell. I was in the stairwell within a minute. It was fast, and there was people already going down. Very controlled, and you were walking. It wasn't slowed yet, because we were up high. But I'll never forget this one guy. I call him the jerk. And that's because he starts, just hyperventilating about a plane, a Cessna, hit the World Trade Center, and it's going to fall on us. And we're in a stairway full of people, everyone's calm, and he's ranting and raving. Some woman kind of grabs my arm and she said, did you see it? What was it? Is he right? And I very brashly, at least this is how I remember it, I very brashly said, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. A generator blew out, it's a small hole, it's no big deal, And I said it in a way, because I thought he was a jerk, and I saw what he was doing to the crew. And, some of my friends who know me might know I can sometimes have a bit of a sharp tongue. And I think I did, because I wanted him to stop. So she's like, okay. And sometimes I think about her, standing up in front of her alumni association, telling a story about some jerk who told her it was a generator blown. So I was honest, and it probably helped at the time, but it is funny now. So we go downstairs, and it's 38 flights. I think it probably took 10 minutes plus a little bit. And I remember getting down, maybe halfway, and all of a sudden the jerk was in my head again. And I'm like, maybe he's right. Maybe it will fall. Like, I don't know, I'm not an engineer. Thank God. And so I'm going down, and I think, all right, well, if that's going to happen, I remember saying, I'm going to live. And for some reason, I felt like making that decision helped. So if the building falls over, I'm going to live. I'm going to choose. I'm going to be the person found in the air pocket a week later who had to gnaw my arm off for nutrition. That was going to be me. So as I went down, I was kind of a quasi-Jason Bourne, looking for where do I go, what do I do? But the handrail was right next to me, and I was on the inside, and I thought, okay, perfect. It's steel. These stairways, it's cement, it's steel, it's gray, it's awful. It's like they forget to put it in at the last minute, they just throw it in. But I was going to go underneath the handrail, and it would make a tripod, all the cement around me, and I would be protected for as long as until somebody came and got me. That was my plan. Sometimes there's a doorway that was steel. I'm like, okay, I'm going there. And obviously, none of that happened. But in hindsight, it kind of helped me like think about something. And I had like a mission. And as it was like when the music stops, where are you going to go? And that's what I was thinking about to distract me. I get down out of the stairwell. I'm looking for my friends. I got no friends. I don't know where they are. And again, the 7 World Trade Center, and if anybody's seen the movie Working Girl from 100 years ago, but they filmed that in the lobby. And when you come across the World Trade Center Plaza, across the smoking lounge or that other bridge, it goes straight into the main area where you get your elevator. But there's a lower level on Vesey Street where you can come in as well. So I was on the upper level, and I'm looking at this wall of glass. It's from Vesey Street, and it's like 3 or 4 stories. And mind, this is all happens so fast in your head. And it's amazing where decision-making comes from. But I remember looking, and everybody was going different directions. Everybody had the same look that I'm sure I had, except that same lost, clueless, what do I do look. And I'm looking at that glass, and I could just remember the Poseidon Adventure. And there was a scene where like the water comes through glass or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that building's coming down, and it's going to come barreling through that glass. I'm out of here. So now I start to move and go into action mode, and I'm going to go down the escalator to the Vesey Street exit, to the street level. And as I'm going down there, I see this guy. I was mid-30s. He was probably mid-30s. But he was big, obviously an athlete, and had a real crisp suit on. And this guy was going somewhere. I was afraid, trying to figure out what to do as everybody else. And he was like, he was going somewhere. And I just remember thinking, man, he is so different than me. Like I knew he had a position of, like he had a role to play in whatever was going to happen to stop what was going on, or recover, or protect, or something. I found out later that the Secret Service was in 7 World Trade, as was Mayor Giuliani. Just put the command center for New York City, some special computers and surveillance and all kinds of stuff. So that complex that Giuliani built was also in the building. So you would have had serious law enforcement type people in there. But I was not sure what the hell to do, so I was just getting out there because Poseidon Adventure. And so I get downstairs, and my whole Jason Bourne thing is failing me, because I'm like, all right, some guys are not letting us walk out onto Vesey Street. Obviously, I didn't know it, but there was things coming from the sky and landing on that street. Some of it was debris. Some of it was not debris. And so I'm standing, and the concierge who comes in, takes your ID, lets you go in the building, gives you a pass, whatever. Concierge says, he's like, hey, buddy, over here. And I'm like, oh, finally, someone's telling me what to do. Thank God. And I start to walk over there, but it's just this wall, and it's textured, and it's all ornate, whatever. And I'm just like, all right, he told me what to do, I'm just gonna do it. And then he opens the wall. There's a door that was like, kind of hidden in there. And I was like, well, that's very Jason Bourne. So the door opens up, I go into it, and there's a garage. I'd worked there 7 years, never seen it, and it was like probably 2 or 3 trucks being fit in there. And so he escorts a handful of us out to the end of the loading dock, and he says, okay, remember I pointed the smoking lounge that's above you, and you got the 10 to 15 feet to run? He said, there's stuff falling from there. You need to run. So don't look, don't pause, just run. So I did exactly what he said. I ran around the corner, and I ran to the back of 7 World Trade, between the Verizon building and 7 World Trade. And there was probably 50, 60 people gathered there. And fortunately, there was my coworkers. And so I stopped, and we're like, just catching up a little bit. But we weren't there very long. I think the second plane hit 15 minutes later, a little more. And so I did all of that and got out there, and I had my back to the World Trade Center because I didn't want to have to unsee what everybody was saying they were seeing. And so I've got my back, maybe a little bit. I turned to the side and kind of peripherally I could see what's going on. And I just had my father on my shoulder saying, hey dummy, get out of there. Like, what do you don't hang around an incident. Like, it's on TV, you'll figure it out later, nothing gained by hanging around. So I went to my boss, and I was just saying, his name was Bill as well, and I was like, Bill, we probably shouldn't, should we? And he was kind of suggesting, yeah, no, you're right. And we have an office up the street a half mile, up straight up Grant Street, half mile, that we go to all the time, and we're basically saying, hey, let's go there. Well, all of a sudden, I hear shrieks and kind of a commotion, and I was kind of half partially turned around, and when I heard that, I turned around, and that's when the second plane hit. And so I'm looking at the hole in the first tower, but I could see the second tower clear as day. And that same thing, massive fireball. I didn't see the first fireball, I felt that. This one, I saw it, I felt it. In fact, I remember distinctly, I learned later what it was, and you can see in this picture, where the kind of the red lines are going out. That's landing gear and engines where they landed. I mean, some of those things landed on people. And so, let's see if I can get this pointer going. So you see 7 World Trade on the bottom right and the Verizon building there. I'm standing here with my coworkers, and we ran upon impact to here, right behind 7 World Trade. And so we've now got, so that's the second time I had to run. And what's really hard is that's when my life changed. First one, it's generator. These things happen. I explained it very simply. And then I realized it was much more than that. And a woman who just started working for me a couple days before, she was commuting from the Jersey Shore. So I don't know how many people, I mean, that is an hour 45 commute if nothing goes wrong. But she wanted to work in the city. She thought it would be fun. She was the nicest person in the world, and she was like, yeah, this would be great, good change of pace. Her second day, she's hanging on my arm. She's really, I mean, she wasn't standing very well. She was really shook, and she said, Billy, I saw it. And I'm like, what did you see? She's like, I saw a plane turn into the World Trade Center. She said, or it was a missile or a plane. I saw it. And I said, yeah, I trust, okay. I said, I don't know what it was, but we're getting the hell out of here. And we're gonna go up to the office at 388 Greenwich, and we're gonna go in there, and we're gonna figure out what's going on, and we're gonna call our families and let them know we're okay. So, it's probably 10 of us, and we're walking up a very familiar path, half mile. We get to 388 Greenwich, and guess what's happening? Everyone's leaving. No one's going to stay in a skyscraper. No one's going to stay in a tall building. So everyone is evacuated. And this was just a reminder of, you know, where is this going to end? So if it's intentional, who's to say that they're not planning other stuff? Who knows? So now my brain is so far off equilibrium, I can't think right. And it's just swinging, you know, back and forth. And that was one of the things I really learned about myself through this, and I guess a lot of people, is how you deal with things like that. But I was, yeah, it was heavy. But what are you going to do? All right, new plan. Now we have an office at 34th Street. And so 34th Street's kind of where Empire State Building is. Yeah, it was roughly. So we go, it's about 3 miles away, maybe 3.5 miles away. But what are we going to do? Like, start walking. So I'll spend some time telling some stories about that kind of path from on our kind of mission to get to 34th Street. But maybe I'll stop and see if there's any questions kind of on the initial impact. Yes?
I remember there was this enormous cloud of smoke and debris that rushed up the street. Did that go by you? Were you involved in that building?
Yeah. I've kind of lost. Oh yeah. So actually, let's first do the video of the impact. Which, sorry, I got on a roll.
Emergency line, please state your emergency.
This is the first one.
It's not actually, somebody stabbed their business class. And I think they're late, that we can't breathe. I don't know, I think we're getting hijacked.
It's a hell of a generator.
Yeah.
Hit World Trade Center or the Trade Center. The fire on the number.
Yeah. So when I saw that video, it was 2 days after, I think. And so I'm starting to get my equilibrium back a little bit. I saw that video and I was a basket case. I was sobbing on the bed. And it was because I always felt like I just left. So I didn't see the cloud. You know, I got out, I ran around the back, second plane hit, I ran away. And so by the time the second plane hit, by the time the building fell, I was probably a mile and a half away. Didn't see it, didn't hear it. I will tell you how I did come across it though. But yeah, any other questions? Yes?
That video that was just shown was taken by a out of country, I think an English film crew that was shadowing the FDNY company, and they were on a job a couple blocks away, and he's running raw video of that, and that's how it got captured like that.
So, exactly right. And I almost think if there's one documentary to watch, it was actually French. It was French filmmakers, but you're exactly right. They were embedded with the firefighters. It's the most incredible coincidence. And they are in the buildings as the buildings are coming down, right? So the next building next door is coming down, and they're running through, and there's no lights. It's unbelievable. And talk about like real heroism and such. They captured it, and so that's probably my number one documentary I like to watch. Okay. Yeah, so as I said, that was my view, but from the ground. I'll go to the next one. So this is, Jerry really helped me with these slides so much, and I like storytelling, and I forgot the slide, so apologies. So you can see, so now on the right, what's illuminated there is the path. The lighter blue line is roughly my walk to get up to 34th Street, and then you'll see it kind of makes a left turn, and I'll explain where I go after that. But that was the day. So the day was, we need to get out of here, we need to call our families, and figure out what the heck's going on. Oh, question, yes?
When you and your building members were leaving, did people gather their briefcase, ladies grab their purse, or was it just, let's get out, or like, what was it like? Because usually, obviously, in an emergency, you just get out, but not knowing what was going on, did people have things with them, their possessions?
It's a great question. And no. Some people just left. I figured I'd be going up to my office later that day, right? One generator had blown out at that time of my life when I left the office. And my buddies who were track stars running down the hallway like George Costanza running from a fire, they didn't stop for anything, they were just out of the way. But I have to say, I have another friend who went upstairs to the gym, and it's all glass, and he was there, I think certainly through the second plane hit, and he was just gawking at the horrific scene that was there. And so some people felt, I'm getting out of here on impact. Some people felt like I initially did, which was, oh, this is incredible, look at this, right? So, but I'd say by and large, people left their stuff. In fact, I had to drive some people home because they left their car keys. Other questions? Okay. So we're making our way up, and New York is basically dry cleaners, nail salons, Irish pubs, repeat. And so we just wanted a phone. I didn't have a cell phone. We had one in the family. My wife had it. She had kids. Okay, what do I need one for? None of our group, actually one guy in the group had one, didn't work. Cell phones did not work. Landlines weren't working. Payphones weren't working. But we went in, I remember the first dry cleaner we stopped in. And usually if you go to a New York City dry cleaner, it's all about efficiency. They'll be nice enough, but they may or may not know the language, and they're still not they're going to act like they don't. They're just like, drop your clothes, get out, because there's a line. And so it's a factory. So I feel like the first one, I remember being sheepishly like, hey, would you mind, can we try using your phone? Like, can we, back in the office, you got a phone? And they were like, come on in. Here, use this phone. Oh, there's another one over there. Try my cell phone. And they were just bending over backwards. So now I'm kind of like, this is almost scary because New Yorkers being nice like this. It was very off-putting. Sometimes when I come back to Rochester, I have the same incident where I'm all wound tight, and I'm like, wait, they're just being nice to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to relax. But these people were relaxed, and they wanted to help, and they were going to give us what we asked for, and they would have helped it anyway. So we probably did that 4 or 5 times as we walked up. The other thing, couple things I observed. There was police, and there was actually kind of camo, I don't know if they were National Guard or whatever, and they were on towards the West Side Highway, and they were basically shooing people uptown and I think away from the river and away from the highway. And so we're walking up, doing as we're told, and all of a sudden this FedEx truck goes flying the wrong way on the highway. And he's beeping his horn, and as he's going by, I see the guy, and he's not like, oh, I'm going to drop in, throw a package on somebody's, front step. He's driving like this. And he is really intense. And I'm like, that's weird. He's driving incredibly recklessly. And as he went past, he had firemen in the back. And one of the guys was putting his boots on. He was not working, but he had to get down with his brothers. And his feet are hanging out the back of this maniac driver's truck, and he's putting his stupid boots on. Not long after, I saw a police officer. He was dressed in casual clothes, but he had the badge. He had his badge hanging. And I am certain that he had just stolen a bicycle because it didn't fit him. He looked like he didn't know it worked. Remember the Wizard of Oz when Dorothy's in her bedroom and her house is flying and the Wicked Witch is riding the bikes outside the window and she's pedaling really fast and not going anywhere? That was this guy. I'm like, he doesn't know how to use it. And I realized he stole that bike to run down to go get in the battle. I'm scared. I'm going the other way, man. And so that's the third time I encountered somebody who lived a different life than I did. And again, through these documentaries, it's unbelievable. You hear firemen going up the stairs full of gear. Guys like, there's nobody up there. We were on the 82nd floor. He goes, it's my job, sir. And he walked up like to go put the fire out. And so anyway, seeing those, it's a little microcosm, I think, of the greater story of the police and the firemen's sacrifice from my perspective. But super heavy, I'll be honest. Even telling the story, sometimes I wonder what happened to those guys. But they're just different. So we're making our way up, and we're going to get to the 34th Street office. But before we do, we hear this plane. And it's coming down the river, kind of sounds super loud. It's super loud, and it feels like it's low, and we're all kind of like, well, it's not a generator. Probably under attack. Are we done? So I remember, I don't remember if we talked about it, but I know myself, I started going like this slowly, and I went over against a wall to one of the buildings, and I kind of crouched down against the wall. And I'm like, all right, Jason Bourne's here, this is what I gotta do. And the plane, it was an F-15 going down the Hudson River. And so we kind of look at each other and like laugh, like, oh, come on, Yeah, sure, it's a generator, Bill. Look at you, get off the ground. So, but you're just so fearful of that which could never happen because it happened. The other thing where we were paranoid was, New York, underneath most of the streets, or many, are subways. So, if you know, like when you walk over a subway, oftentimes there's a grate, and the women know because you're high heel, you get your heel stuck in. It's very common. You don't even think about it for the most part. And we're walking over, and somebody said, wait a minute, don't they talk about blowing up subways? Isn't there every once in a while a story about that? And we're like, yeah, let's not walk up a street that has subways underneath it, which in New York is tough, but that was our goal. Again, what's the limit? Where does this go? And so we were just, the time being prudent. Now it's kind of funny, but you just don't know how far it's going to go. So it's about almost 10:30, and we get to this diner, and we go in, usual drill. Can we use your phone? They came out as a diner. They gave us each like a case of water. They're like, what do you like? I got a phone here. Here's my pay phone. Like, carry your picture. Like they could not have wanted to help more. Very limited in how they could help, but they just really wanted to. So we tried all their phones. Nothing worked. And they're like, do you guys want something to eat? On the house. Whatever you guys want. Whatever you want. And again, I think there's 6 of us, 6 or 7 at this time. And we're like, no. We took the water, and we're, water each, and we're heading out. Like, no. And Sergey says, sure, I'll have a bacon, egg, and cheese on a bagel. And we're like, now meanwhile, there were senior people there. He was the kid, and the CFO was one of the guys with us. And we were all like, Serge, like it's all palms up. We're like, what are you thinking? You're going to eat that now? So we don't know what to do with him. Still don't. Great guy, but he was hungry. So we go outside, and we're standing on the street. Another very unusual thing in New York for this day was there was a car parked by the edge of the sidewalk. Doors and windows were open, and the radio was playing the news. And what would happen is people were just kind of gathering around this car. And normally it's like, hey man, get away from my car. And this guy was like telling people what he had heard, giving them updates. One of the things we heard was the South Tower had fallen. So Serge is getting his food. South Tower had fallen. And I was looking back down the avenue, and I could see the top of one of the towers. And at this time, I didn't know it had fallen, but I could see the top of one of the towers and a blue sky next to it. And I wasn't sure if the blue sky was because it was missing or because it was behind the other building, right? I wasn't sure which was which. We hear on the radio, tower fell. No debris, no dust, none of that. I did have my college roommate was actually in Battery Park City. The dust cloud came and he ran as far as he could to get to the Hudson River, and he stood on the edge, and he was going to jump in the river because the cloud was coming. And he's like, I don't know what to do here. And he didn't jump, but that cloud was a scary thing that I didn't get to experience. So I'm looking at the towers, or the tower singular, and I'm just, it's been a long day already, and all of a sudden, ka-thump, 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 ka-thump. All the, as you can see there on the left, thank you, Jerry, the tower starts falling on itself. And I could see the top 25 floors, and they just condensed to one, and then we're out of sight. And I thought, 25,000 people just died. And after a day like that, and I thought about this a lot, even in kind of thinking about it tonight, there's a limit to how much sadness you can take on. Like, I can't comprehend 25,000. Is that worse than 12,000? Yes, but I'm filled up with tragedy. So, obviously, I had heard somewhere 25,000 people worked at each tower, and so I assumed everybody was sitting at their desk still and yada, yada, yada. So 3,000 people was the number in total, but that was my thought, 25,000 people I just watched die. So time's up for Serge. We're out. We're like, Serge, enjoy. He had a different plan anyways. He had family in the city. He was going to break off from us. So Serge eats his lunch, and we make it to 34th Street. I get to 34th Street, and it was kind of an operational area, and so for financial services, it's like trade settlement. So real Wall Street guys, not accountant pretenders like me. And my roommate's best friend, who I probably saw twice a week in the bar, I ran into him. I'm like, Craig, how you doing? I go, can you believe this? And he said, they're gone. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, they're gone. And I said, and he's not a hysterical guy. He's actually more of a laughy, jokey, make fun of you, whatever. And he is ranting and raving, they're gone. He said, we were on the phone with Cantor Fitzgerald traders, and they were right on the line, and it's gone, they're gone. We cannot get anybody over there. And I was like, at that time I'd never heard of Cantor Fitzgerald. I didn't. maybe it didn't really mean anything to me, but okay. So I go and I call. Actually, my wife told me today that I didn't call her, so I think I didn't get her. But I ended up, I think, speaking to my father. My mother was working at the Red Cross, conveniently enough, because they became heavily in need. And I said, hey, I'm okay. Tell people around, I'm okay, I'm going to get the hell out of here. You know, just, that's it. Somebody said, all right, well, if you guys are going to Jersey, go over to Chelsea Piers. Chelsea Piers. So Chelsea Piers is there on the right. And it's a sports complex. There's hockey rinks, soccer fields, driving range, marina, all kinds of stuff. It's a pretty cool place. And so, and you can see on the picture on the right, the Empire State Building in the background. That was roughly where I was. And I had to walk, probably was like a 10, 15-minute walk, not too bad. And then I ended up getting on one of these dinner ship type of cruise dinner type ships. But as we're walking to get to Chelsea Piers, I see a line of ambulances beyond, right? Like they go up the block. I could see 50, 70, I'm not really sure, but they just went as far as I could see, right around the corner. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like real preparation. I'm not the first to give credit to a lot of agencies, but somebody had done the right thing, and there was people there ready for a mass casualty event. Unfortunately, we didn't have mass casualties, ironically. As I got closer to those ambulances, I saw Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, maybe Pelham, which is in Westchester County by me. And then I go look farther down the line. It's Pennsylvania, Darien, Connecticut, Suffolk County, New York. And I'm like, these people came from all over, and they showed up. Again, it's probably 11:30, something like that, maybe. And they show up. They're all waiting there. No one's moving. No one's calling for an ambulance. That's the tragedy of it. We end up going to walk through the ambulances, and I see this line for these cruise ships. And it's winding down one pier, back, down the next pier, and back, 6 people wide. And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna suck. Waiting here all day, I'm never gonna get home. Well, that was like a Walt Disney World line. I never stopped moving. I was on a ship, I don't know, feels like 10 minutes, maybe it was 30 or 40 minutes. But it was fast. Ship had us in New Jersey like that, felt fast, because I'm so appreciative that they had this plan ready and had implemented it. But I don't know where I'm going still. My car's now going to drop me off. I don't know where I'm going. I think there was 2 or 3 friends. I think there was 3 of us on the ship together at this point, so 4 in total. I get off the ship and I walk kind of out to where it opens up in the parking lot, and Florence Nightingale herself comes over and says, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Newark train station." And she said, "Go over there. Get on that yellow bus. It'll take you there." And I was like, just, when you need a little guidance and somebody's there, I love that woman. I don't know what she looks like anymore, but I just remember the feeling I had of appreciation for her just being there for me. So me and my friends go, yellow bus, go to Newark train station, and we get in my car. Actually, my mom, it was your car. It was your Honda Accord that I bought from you. It was still running. And I drove my 2 buddies. The woman who was with us, her husband came up from the Jersey Shore together, if I remember correctly. But I drove 2 buddies to kind of central Jersey. And by this time, well, it had to be 5 o'clock, because we're driving down the turnpike, and they lived a pretty good distance south. And all of a sudden, we're listening to the radio, of course, and they say, "Oh my God, 7 World Trade Center just fell." And I remember feeling like a beaten boxer, maybe MMA person, and being laying on the ground, and then somebody just kicking you one more time in the gut. Like, who cares? Nobody was in the building. My Palm Pilot was gone. I just bought this neat little Palm Pilot before there was cell phones. I thought it was, and I was looking forward to using it. Gone. Everything was gone. Never to go back there again. Like, no lives were lost. The building had been evacuated, but it was just one more kick in the pants. So, drop my buddies off. I'm home. I figure it's probably 6:30, and I walk in, talk to my wife, or according to her, we didn't talk. I just walked in and sat on the couch in a vegetative state. And she actually said, as I was telling her about my comments tonight, she's like, "I didn't know that. I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that." I said, I feel like I'm a better communicator than that, but she's probably right. I probably did. But I was beat, and a lot of people were calling. Jerry Pickett called, right? So just telling the story over and over. And I've done that since day one. Like, this is the first time I've strung it together for the day, but I have told the story from day one intentionally, because I did it for myself, because I wanted to not sit on it, right? So, like I said, I was getting choked up before in the hotel room by myself, so I don't mind doing it. So anyways, I'm home, kiss my wife and kids, talk to my parents, talk to my in-laws, and that's when I found out that what Cantor Fitzgerald meant. So my mother-in-law said, and I'm sure my wife said it before, but 1 down, 1 to go. And I said, what do you mean? Well, Mark is missing, my wife's cousin. And she said, yeah, he worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. And yeah, I knew what that meant. So we go, or rather, Mark's brother calls me and says, hey, have you seen Mark? Anything? What can you tell me? And I'm like, I feel so bad. I ran. I wasn't down there. So, this is actually right. So you see good pictures here of my old building on the left. Top right, you can see the sphere, and then you can see the dust cloud. But after all of this, and all that day, I remember my father giving me parental advice. Son, you need to look after your wife. She's exhausted. It's been a long day for her. Blah, blah, blah. I said, Dad, I got nothing. I'm done. I'm just going to sit here. She's sitting here. This is it. We're just going to survive the night. And that's what we did. And it took some time to talk about your equilibrium being off. And that was, that's what it was, just kind of trying to recalibrate. Do you want to, maybe we want to show the Mark video next? Yeah. So a couple aftermath things, quick anecdotes perhaps. One, the smell from the World Trade Center reached my house in New Jersey, 15 miles away, clear as day. And I used to have to walk past the World Trade Center rubble pile. From the early days, it was still simmering because I had to go to work. We had an office downtown. And I remember at that time smelling it and going, this ain't good. This ain't good. I'm not a scientist, not an engineer, but I knew this wasn't good. And people were out there, no masks or cheap masks, and it's a shame, but it reached our house. And one of the things that I feel what really bothered me personally a lot, and how did you change or whatever, I was so fearful of stuff, and I hated that. I hated that. I was mowing my lawn, and all of a sudden I hear a plane approaching. And it's not like, we were by Newark Airport. It clearly wasn't some high-flying megajet. It was low and fast, and I'm cutting my 1/10 of an acre property, and this thing keeps getting louder and louder, and I'm kind of going like this. A friggin' F-15, I feel like it buzzed the tops of the trees. It was probably 150 feet up, or maybe even 400. It felt like it was the top of the tree. I'm on the ground, on my hands and knees, turn the lawnmower off, go in the house, go lay down, like I was petrified. And this was days later. A couple weeks later, I go out to the parking lot, and I'm looking in the back seat to make sure nobody's in there. What? I don't do that. What? That is nuts. And and that stuff was frustrating me at first, till we talked to a counselor, and she talked about how that equilibrium, that pendulum, she's like, you guys, you're going to experience things, you're going to cry for no reason, you're going to laugh for no reason, you're going to be angry for no reason. And she's like, it's just your brain is so out of whack, it's going to take some time, talk about it, be there for each other, and just don't think there's something wrong with you. So, that advice that she gave in the 15 minutes she spent with us was so valuable to me, because whenever I did something stupid or felt like it was stupid, I'm just getting through it. So that was real special advice. Any questions on evacuation or anything? Yeah.
You talked about going back to work. How long before your company wanted you back at work?
Oh, Kyle, I was going to put this in my comments, but I didn't, but because I'm a little bit angry about this. So the next day, September 12th, my boss is the CFO of our business, and he calls me and he's checking on me. And I'm like, Bill, thank God we didn't go in today. I'm a basket case. I couldn't have done it. And he's like, oh, well, I'm calling to see if you can come in tomorrow. And, I always say, yes, sir. Yes, sir, may I have another? Like, okay, I'll come in. So we went in because Citigroup had its earnings call, so we had to report to corporate how we did. And they're like, oh, we're going to take it easy. We know what you guys have been through. We understand. So 3 or 4 of us on the call with the CFO, these guys started asking real pointed questions. Like, that was the analysis we would have had if we weren't running for our lives, So it wasn't, look, they had to do the earnings call. They needed our information. But wasn't Citigroup's finest hour, in my personal opinion. Yeah, so I mentioned Mark, my wife's cousin, who was missing 4 years. Anybody who was down there saw this. Any wall in Lower Manhattan was covered in pictures like this. And it was hard to walk past it, because every one of them is a story, right? You can only absorb so much pain and anguish. Every one of them had hundreds of people who were devastated by them being missing. And that was real sad. So 2005, my brother, my nephew, Patrick, right, Jackie? Patrick sailed with us? Yeah. My nephew Patrick, my father and I bought a sailboat, we sailed it up, stayed in New York overnight, we're going to sail the next day to Connecticut. So my brother and my nephew and I go to New York, and I'm giving them, it's basically this talk, but I'm walking around, and I'm showing, like, yeah, this is where I stood, this is where I ran, this is where this landed, and we walked past the fire department. that was right in the shadow of the World Trade Center. And they had all these plaques for the guys who died on that day. And I think it might be the same fire department as where the French filmmakers were kind of focused on. It is, yeah. And, you know, I'm suffering from low testosterone. That's what the problem is here. This is not, try not to be so emotional so many years later, but I honestly, the firefighters and the police and the people with the look in their eye that was different than me who went into the fight, tough to comprehend. And when you see 12 plaques, fire department, tiny little thing, it's unbelievable how much loss they had. So, yeah, that is tough. So seeing the plaques, seeing the missing people, just reminded you continually about the tragedy. Yeah. So before you start, let's just. So I said it's hard to fathom that much pain. This is my wife's cousin, Mark Hindy. He worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. He's the guy on the left there. Okay. Well, basically, Mark, everyone says this, right? Mark was the best. A 6'3", gregarious, bigger than life, just a great guy. Him and his brother are just big, funny, nice people, the best people. He was a walk-on pitcher at Vanderbilt, and his catcher was one of his best friends, and he's in the video. And they showed him on ESPN, wherever, game night, his friend was catching, and he had Mark's number on his shoulder in remembrance. So this video is two of Mark's friends talking about what a great guy he was, what the loss meant to them, how they heard, etc. So that gets me every time. So trust me when I tell you, it's heavy, but it's important. It's important to put names and faces because it's so overwhelming. So let me stop. Anything else, Pickett, that I know we... Yeah, I don't know if you're downtown, I would do the World Trade Center Museum. It's really good. There's a special room, smaller room where they don't let kids because it's too heavy. I was there on a day, it was so busy that I couldn't settle in. I couldn't absorb it, so I'll probably go back. But anyways, any kind of final questions?
I got one simple one.
Yeah.
Did you experience at any point this phenomenon where things slow down and kind of go into a slow motion visually or in your mind? I mean, auto accidents and things like that, you'll have that experience.
Yeah, I think I did. I think each of the major, so on the first impact, my brain solved in for what it was. I was wrong, but like by the time I turned around, which was a split second, I had already processed what it was, how it could be, and the whole thing. So yeah, I think it definitely did happen a number of times. There's a question in the back.
Yeah, I have a question. The time of you evacuating until you got several blocks away, were the news media outlets already there, or was it too soon after? And if yes, have you ever seen yourself on any documentaries?
So I've not seen myself on a documentary. I did not really see news. When I was down there was a lot of helicopters. So, and that was part of like, what am I doing here? These helicopters, I can watch this all day if I want. So I don't need to stay. But I didn't see anything on the ground. Again, there's some amazing photography that was captured. In that dust cloud was, you see people, the fear of God coming through them as that cloud came. Yes?
connected you together so deeply that you share a common?
So, the people I was with for the most part were, I'd say half of them were buddies. But honestly, at this point, 23 years later, I don't really talk to those folks. They're big shots and such. So, I think everybody's kind of get further and further apart. But I can tell you that one of my buddies is his wife, and I forgot to mention this, but we had a call train. So we finally got through on a payphone. And I think people here, payphones? Just like, So we finally got through to a payphone, and the guy who was sprinting out of the building first from my floor with a look of fear in his eyes, he gets through, and somebody had the bright idea to make a call train for there was 7 numbers on it. He calls his wife. We're on a payphone, so I'm thinking all right, we're recording, you get 3 minutes, I don't know. And his wife is hysterical. And I can hear him trying to say, honey, stop. He's yelling, shut up, you gotta stop. And I'm like, man, he's really trying to get her to calm down. But I started to become a little bit New York. And after a while, I was like, you better calm down, because we need to get this call tree to her. So it ended up working out. And Mindy, my friend's wife, called, had never met my wife. She said, Judy, my name's Mindy. Your husband and my husband are together. They are safe, and they are walking. They're trying to figure out how to get out of the city. So, but I think, Jackie, to your question, people do talk about it. I was at dinner 2 weeks ago with a guy, kind of a partner firm we work with, and September comes up, right? And he says, yeah, I went out September 10th with college buddies or whatever, or a client maybe, and he goes, I got all banged up, and I was too hungover to get on my flight out of Boston. He's sitting next to me at dinner 2 weeks ago, and he put, so I think people are pretty willing to share. But again, most of the stories are like mine. I didn't run for my life much or do anything heroic. So it's not, maybe if somebody had a really traumatic one, it might be different, but. Oh my goodness. So, My wife was home, and she heard from Mindy. Actually, before she heard from Mindy, my sons, 1.5 years and 4, they're all playing. My mother-in-law calls, turn on the TV. First she says, did Bill go to work already? She's like, yeah, he went in early. And she's like, all right, don't be alarmed, but. And a lot of people in the family just knew World Trade Center, right? Like, I don't know if you knew I was in 7 World Trade, right? So anyways, Judy puts my son in a pack and play thing, and my other son just plays well by himself, and she goes up and she's watching on TV. She comes down after a while to check on him, and the boys were watching PBS, and whatever show was on. But PBS flipped over to the news. So now my kids are sitting there watching burning buildings and planes flying into buildings, and she was beside herself, but what are you gonna do? So when she heard from Mindy, she took the kids, filled up the car with gas, packed the bag for everybody to bug out, because she was gonna drive to Rochester. If something happened, she wanted us to be ready to go, because how far is this going to go? Still don't know. Are we at war? What's happening here? So we were coming to visit you all. And so she was doing all the right things, and she stopped for ice cream with her 2 little boys. And these kids, teenagers, young teenagers, go riding by on their bicycles. And my wife is Sicilian. These boys go by her, and they're like, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, and this lady's eating ice cream. And she told me this weekend, she goes, if I could rip that kid off his bike today, I would rip that kid off his bike. So that's what Sicilian kid matters. So, it was hard for my wife. And one of the things about my 4-year-old, and I looked for this, because it kind of was a memento in a weird way, but he drew a picture, September 12th, 13th, or 14th area, of skyscrapers on fire, planes flying into them, fire trucks trying to put the flames out, debris falling and all that stuff. And we saw accounts, we're like, hey, is this okay? He started to take his blocks, and he'd build a skyscraper, and then he would build a slide so people could get out of the skyscraper. He was giving them a path. This is his plan. So, but the therapist said, you know what? As long as he's acting it out in a constructive way like that, that's a good thing. So I kind of think it's almost like I'm happy, willing, and able to talk about it. Not always easy, but I do it. I think he was kind of acting it out and telling the story in his own way too. So, I missed any other stories, Jim? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Bill's game. Wonderful. Any other questions? Yes.
Well, Mr. Golden, thank you. Thank you very much for doing this, because the words never forget are starting to wear off a little bit now. And it's one thing that we always say, never forget, never forget. And without people like you coming forward and talking about this stuff, it doesn't get talked about. And kudos to both the Alumni Association and historical people for coming up with it. There's a lot of 9/11 people here in this county that were experienced somehow through railroad and stuff. One of them is a lady and her husband lived over in Margaret, John in Norfolk, or Steve in Norfolk. Her brother was a lieutenant at the FDNY in Paris. And we get together with them at least once a year at one of the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation events. And it's good to have her there, and it's, they're survivors, basically. PSTD. Yes.
Yeah.
That wasn't a buzzword in 2001. Now it's real. Can you imagine everybody affected? Fire, police, EMS, first responders, everybody that went through it being affected by that, what it did to their life. And one of the big things right now is 343 New York City Fire and Parish Day. Post 9/11, the number's up at 363 additional firefighters passed. So, there's some bad stuff that they went through. The people that were down there, I don't know what the civilian casualties are, the people that were exposed to the dust and the debris and stuff like that. So, this was a far-reaching event that, I hope never happened again in this country. But thank you very much for keeping it alive.
Thank you for saying that, and well said. Yeah, no, I totally agree. We need to keep it alive. Right.
You say that the heroes died that day, and the heroes have different uniforms, and you wear the hero's uniform because you are out here telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
That is a hero also. Please never forget that.
That is probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. It was very nice, thank you. I'm going to choose, I take the appreciation of your comment and his to heart. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad Jerry asked me. I'm glad you all had me. And you said PTSD. I have like a glimpse of what it is. Now imagine you're fighting in Fallujah, door to door every day. And like what I did was like child's play. So I've always been super appreciative of first responders and the military and such. Oh,